In the custodians, we talk about the ETs have prepared another planet. That's a separate thing.
I see.
The other planet that's being prepared is in case we were stupid enough to destroy the world. The human race must not perish. And they would take some there to keep the human race going. And a lot of these are the cloning that's been going on to keep the race going.
Okay.
That's a different thing. They said you can call it what you want when you get there. It's like a new Eden. That's another planet that's being prepared. They said it'll be similar to Earth, but not exactly the same.
Okay, and this new Earth that you're talking about is another concept.
This is the vibrations of this Earth moving into another dimension.
Okay, so
it's
that's
not a totally separate one.
We're talking about, in essence, two dimensions, both people residing on one dimension and the other dimension, and that they're actually occupying in perhaps the same space.
You mean the two Earths? No, because once they separate, they can't occupy the same space.
Okay.
Now they are. That's why people can't go yet, because it's not ready. The vibrations haven't completed.
Okay, so you're talking about a group change.
But until the vibration and frequencies match, it can't happen. That's why it's happening gradually. They said the human body is going to go. Our frequencies and vibrations have to raise to match those of the planet as you go. To change the vibration of the human body to that quickly would destroy the human body. It couldn't handle it. So it's been doing it gradually. This started about 2003 is when it began to be obvious something was going on. A gradual progression, and they will change the vibrations and frequencies up a little notch until you adapt to that. This can take several months, and there will be definite physical symptoms as this occurs. Then it will even out, and then it will go up another notch. So it's a gradual process. But now it seems like it's not affecting the human body as much because we're gradually adapting to it. The older people are having the hardest time adjusting. The young ones are coming in already adjusted. It's the ones in the middle that are having trouble. But those that can't handle the change will just leave the planet.
Okay.
They'll make a transition, they'll die, in other words. But they said that's okay. That's why so many are leaving all at once. It's all right to do that because they are not ready to handle the vibrations and the frequencies. But as the body adapts, as you move through this, then we will all move together. That's when the separation occurs, when it reaches that point.
And have they given you a year or a time for that?
No, one thing I keep asking them questions about it, they say, we can't answer all your questions because we don't know. This is the first time in the history of a universe this has ever happened. So we don't really know what's going to happen. So they said, it's the biggest show on Earth. All the ETs, everyone is watching. They want to see if we can pull it off. But let me give an example that, I don't know if you know Annie Kirkwood. She wrote Mary's Message to the World. And we used to do panels together. She had a vision that I think really describes it the best way. Because it's very hard to understand the concept of things splitting and becoming two. But it's evolution is what it is. She saw the Earth. And then she saw it begin to pull apart like a cell does when it divides. And as it began to pull apart, she saw it break apart into two Earths. One was the new and one was the old. And over here, she heard them saying, we did it, we did it, we did it. And over here, it was like, poor thing, she died believing all that. So the one will not be aware of the other ones. It's like in the Bible, in the book of Revelations, when they talk about the new heaven and the new earth, one is left and one is taken. It's that like a concept.
I understand. Okay.
So the old earth are the negativity, the ones who are steeped in negativity and karma. Their vibrations cannot change fast enough for them to go. But they said it's okay. They're where they're supposed to be. But as our vibrations move with the earth, when it separates is when it comes apart. But we're coming to that time, but it can't be sudden. Now 2012 is what they're always talking about. They said that date is not definite. That is when it's like a culmination, when the energy reaches a culmination like a plateau. And at that time, if the energy increases, it will force the earth to move into the other one. But it doesn't mean that is the end of it. It's definitely not the end of the earth, it's the end of civilization as we know it. You'll begin to notice some big changes. But they said, it won't happen all of a sudden, it'll be subtle. You begin to say, things look a little different. Things don't feel the same anymore as they did on the other part. But as the two moves apart, but that is what happens between the two. So it's a little hard to understand. There is a definite separation. And when I was telling that in a lecture, this one man came up to me afterwards and he said, now I'm a businessman. I've never had this happen to me before. But I've got to tell you what happened when I listened to you describe this vision. He said, all of a sudden the auditorium disappeared. I was out in space and I saw it just exactly the way you said. So he said, I'm going to go home and make a computer drawing of what you said and I'll send it to you. Just don't tell anyone where you got it. And I put it in my book. We have the color one at home.
Okay.
And the new earth is slightly over the old earth and it's glowing, where the old earth is different. And it's hard for people to get the concept of the idea, but they're definitely two separate things.
So this information comes to you from a variety of the clients that you deal with, isn't that
I work
right?
with thousands and thousands of people.
And each time they are talking about this process, isn't that right? I mean, you're
When it
getting
comes out
multiple
in the therapy that I
testimony.
work, because I ask so many questions. And I think it has more validity when I get the same information coming from many people that have no idea what I'm looking for.
Okay.
So I ask a little more questions each time to try to fill in the blanks.
Yes.
But it comes through many, many people. A piece here and a piece there, and then I have to put it all together like a puzzle. But, so I keep wanting to clarify it. I want more information to find out. But they said it's never happened before. We don't know what's going to happen. But you may tell some of the symptoms of the body that the
Sure.
people are experiencing.
Okay.
Because even the client I just had, they were saying, don't worry about these symptoms. They're normal. But people go running to the doctors. And when they start, people think they're getting ill. But it only lasts for a few days or so, and then it'll even off. Okay, some of the symptoms they've experienced is high blood pressure, heart palpitations. That's a big one because they think they're having a heart attack. But it's the irregular beating of the heart. Also, depression, dizziness, headaches, body aches and pains. I think those are most of them, but they sometimes go from one to the other. They go to the doctor can't find anything wrong with them.
Well, familiar with the work of Barbara Mashiniak?
Yes, I know her very well.
Okay. And she has a book in which she, in essence, was communicated through by the Pleiadians.
Yeah, I knew she had the older books. I didn't know if she made doing
Bringers
anymore.
of the Dawn, I think it is.
Yeah, that was her first book.
One of her
20 years ago.
Yes, quite a long time ago. But nonetheless, they were talking about this transition time.
Well, whenever, we are in and out of dimensions all the time. We don't realize it, but we do go from one to the other as we shift back and forth. It's natural, but that's not a bleed through.
Okay.
We have to keep the dimensions separate, especially there are civilizations on these other dimensions. There are people living there that we don't realize. There are smaller dimensions, but these are the bigger ones we're talking about. And I don't see how they can bleed through or how they can merge. That wouldn't make sense with what I've been told.
Okay.
But then I don't have all the information. That'd be good questions to ask.
Now, what about your own life? In other words, can you describe what they kind of coin you as having a certain job, a certain mission from their point of view? Want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, when I started with this, they wanted to know if I wanted to do it. This 25 years ago, especially when I got in with the ETs and things. And they wanted to know, they said, do you want protection as you work? And I said, yeah, I can take all the protection I want. So they said, all right, if you're not supposed to go somewhere, you won't be allowed to go out the front door. We'll take care of you. And then they said, as you volunteer to do this work, we'll keep you healthy. And all along, every time they come through, different individuals, they'll say, we will keep you infused with the life force as long as you want to stay in the body and do the work. Because they said I was very important to get the information out. Because I have such a curiosity, I want to know everything. So they wanted to give me as much information as they could. And they keep giving me more and more as a convoluted universe comes along, the series. Because every time I think I've got it all, they give me another concept, another theory that I haven't heard of before. But they say we can't know it all. It's absolutely impossible. It's our human brain. It's the mind, not the brain. They said, because the human mind has no concepts to understand these things. So I always say, well, give me as much as you can. In analogies, examples. So they said, we will try, but it's a poor example. But at least we get a little bit about what's going on.
So can you talk about any concepts that you've heard recently that are maybe the most wild
Oh, they're getting wilder and wilder.
What would be an example?
Let me tell you a little bit about, you talk about the three waves, and the energy of these pure beings coming in. When they first come into the fetus, they said the energy of the mother has to be adapted to bring the energy in. And so sometimes, because of the difference in the energy of the mother with the incoming energy, that it'll mean the baby will abort or they'll have a miscarriage because the energy doesn't match. So they have to keep trying. So then they will bring in a little more to adapt it. They don't bring in the full energy of that spirit because they found out it will harm it. So as they come in, as they grow, as they become a child and get a little older, a little more of the energy will be brought into the body. And I've talked to people that end up being this kind of a person, and they'll say, yes, my mother had several miscarriages before they were born. They had to adapt the body. So some of the, what we call abductions, are when they take the person on board the craft to put a little more of the energy into the body. It's time to receive more. It's working on the body to adapt it to handle this soul, this energy that's in there. I think that's important for people to know. It does not a negative thing.
Yes. Okay. I understand. So, is there anything else that you would like to talk about in terms of the future? So, you must have a pretty positive view of the future.
That's what I mean. Don't forget, you create your reality. You create everything in your life. You can't blame anybody else. If you don't like what you have in your life, you can uncreate it.
Yes.
That's the important thing.
And I think that's a very important
So if you want to live in a positive, beautiful world, that is your reality. If you want to live in the world where everything negative is happening, that's your reality. You have a choice.
Okay.
But they did say, in order to go, if you're going to go with the new earth, there's two things you have to do that are very important to help change your vibration.